It's time for the Sin Bin Podcast, your home for all the latest news, analysis, and discussion around the Chicago Blackhawks and Bloomington Bison.
Let's drop the puck and get started.
Welcome back to the Sin Bin Podcast. I'm Dylan Skeen, joined by Michael Eganhouse, and we are excited to have you for another episode. Today, we have a very special guest, a 5-year ECHL veteran, your Bloomington Bison captain, Eddie Matsushima. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here to join us. How are you doing today, just in general?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. This is awesome.
That's great to hear. First, Michael, you have the first question?
Yeah, so obviously we said you're a 5-year ECHL veteran, and you've traveled around the league a lot. So just how has it been in Bloomington so far, and what's that transition been like?
Yeah, man. I love Bloomington so far. It's been great. Like you said, I've been around a number of teams. I started out in Orlando. I was only in Orlando for a short stint. I was in Maine for a couple months, and I've been in Tulsa for the last 3 years. So it's been an interesting transition. It's definitely a lot colder here than down in Oklahoma.
A little bit.
I'm used to being able to golf all year round, so it's been a little different. Haven't had a winter in
a while.
5 years, so it's been fun. But no, my wife and I love it here. It's great.
That's awesome. One second, I'll actually have you hold the mic since it's being a little finicky there, but that's all good. Next, so you've been around a couple different leagues, the SPHL, ECHL, and a few games in the AHL. How do the presentations differ between those leagues? I've always wanted to know, because I'm more on the backside of stuff, so I've always wanted to know how does the presentation and pregame and stuff like that differ between those leagues that you've seen?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Depending on the organization you're with, being in the SPHL, I was with a pretty good organization with Pensacola Ice Flyers, and the little things are pretty much the same. It's like your general pregame stuff. But when you get into looking at the locker room setups, and you get into looking at the training room, and you start kind of looking at those little pieces, the SPHL is a lot worse off than say the American Hockey League, right? When you get into, I played in San Diego, so they had some really awesome facilities. When we're looking at just facilities, just to say, they had in-ground hot and cold tubs, right? They got a steam room in the locker room, and in the SPHL you've got one cold tub that's kind of tucked back in a corner that you got to alternate between the hot and the cold. And you look at gym facilities, they have an actual strength trainer in San Diego, and we actually have one here in Bloomington. Our facilities in Bloomington are amazing, but when you go back and look at some SPHL facilities, they're not quite the same.
Not as good.
They're not quite the same. So,
that makes sense.
Well, I was just about to ask you kind of along the same lines, playing in Bloomington, what is maybe your favorite part in playing in Bloomington compared to others, and what is just different about maybe the team, the city, facilities, all kind of that?
Yeah, so for me, Bloomington is actually really close to home for me. My parents are only about 3 hours away. They live in Verona, Wisconsin. So this is the closest I've ever played to home professionally. So my parents have already been to more games this season than they have in my entire professional career. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that part's really cool for me. I spent most of my coast career in Tulsa. And so just being in Bloomington, the organization is so professional. Not that Tulsa wasn't, but just for us being an inaugural team, it surprises me how professional the organization is, how well set up we are with our facilities and just everything that we've got going on, and just how ready everybody is to learn. Everybody from the front office to our coaching staff to our players, everybody's just willing to learn and adapt and just really try to grow as fast as we can in this first year.
That's leads into a good question. It is the inaugural season for the Bloomington Bison. What has it been like being a captain for an inaugural team? That's got to be a crazy weird.
Yeah, no, it's definitely different. When you go into a team, typically there's everything, the culture is kind of set. There's some precedents that have already been taken care of, and in Bloomington, obviously there's none. So, it's kind of a daunting task. It felt like at first to just think about all those things that, now every decision we make is like setting the stage for days, months, and years to come. And it's definitely been a little bit of pressure, but it's been good. Phil Barsky, our coach, and I have a pretty good relationship. And so, being able to set the culture has been something that's been really cool. But yeah, with this inaugural year, it's just it's something that I don't think anybody could prepare for. It's something that you can't really nobody can say, yeah, this is how you set up a brand new team. This is how you install a culture in a coast team. So
awesome. Well, something that we've noticed a lot with being a captain of the team, like in the ECHL, a lot of people go up and down a lot. You get called up, you get called down, you go to different places, go overseas, no matter what. So you being a captain, you've lost Blake McLaughlin, Danny Caddick, Chongmin Lee, among others.
Those are the ones that actually just got called back up, I was going to say, because we've had just recently, you got back Blake McLaughlin, Danny Caddick, Chongmin Lee, and Sahil Panwar. Those were just recently. And then even more recently, you just had all-star goalie like Mark Sinclair head over to the Liga. And then just recently, as we were preparing for this podcast, we were checking Twitter and we're like, oh, Zach Hoffman decided to go overseas as well. We were both shocked by that one. So in a league where there's just so much turnover in the locker room, like compared to another league, like even the AHL, because people get called up in the AHL, but I would say it seems like a little bit less. In this league, there just seems like constant locker room differences. How do you as a captain even manage to tackle that?
Yeah, it's honestly, I think it's something that I'm pretty used to at this point. I mean, like I said, I've been in the league for so long, it feels like now, and when you look at it from an outside perspective, I guess it is a lot. It's a lot. Chonger went to Korea and just for the Asia World Cup, and then came back, or the Asia Games, came back. The guys get called up and down. I mean, we're double affiliated. And guys go to Europe all the time, and so for me, I feel like I'm just kind of used to it, and it's never easy seeing your teammates go. When Sinclair decided to go to Liga, that's something that we're very, very happy for him. I mean, it's more sad than it is. We don't care about the hockey side. It's more just sad to see such a good guy leave, and you grow close with everybody. They become your brothers and develop relationships and stuff like that. So, getting to have the ability to see guys go up is awesome too. You say the same thing to guys every time. It's hate to see you go, but I hope I never see you again. All right, we're gonna miss you, but we never want to see you again, because you want guys to move on. And I've just kind of gotten used to it over the years. It's just you kind of expect it. Right around this time, as unfortunate it is, we found out today that Hoff's going overseas, and I wish him nothing but the best. He's an awesome guy, and again, never upset or worried about hockey stuff. It's always more personal. It's tough to see guys go, but I hate to say it, but unfortunately at this point, I just kind of expect it.
I guess that makes sense, being so long in the league. We briefly touched on Chongmin Lee, but I wanted to go over his stats because we talked about it a little bit. You went him onto the Asia League, 8 games, 25 points with 8 goals. I remember when we talked about it on the podcast, he had 20 and 5, and then on the next the next day as I was editing it, I checked the stats to see if I missed anything, and he had scored another hat trick in the game while the podcast was going on. I'm just absolutely ripping up that Asia League. So we thought that was pretty cool from Chongmin there. So also here on the pod, so this one's a little bit tougher, but on the pod we were talking about this coming weekend, this series against Indy specifically. So there is the game against the Heartlanders before that, but specifically this 4-game series against Indy. We already talked about in the prior 2 weeks how big of a series this was going to be with Indy, because they're the ones you're right with in the standings there for playoff seeding. You're right there, and now you face them 4 games in a row, even with what we've mentioned a little bit might be a rival in waiting, because it's by the same owner, a mini playoff series, essentially. At this point, that's near the importance of it. How do you prepare yourself for such a big upcoming 4-game series with a team like that?
Yeah, with all these guys coming back, you think that you're going to have them for a while, and then you never know what's going to happen. So we're preparing without all these guys, trying to figure out, okay, what's the strategy going to be? We start to gain some momentum on our south trip. We get all these guys back. It changes a lot of the chemistry between the lines. We don't have such a good weekend. Now we're like, what do we do? Now we lose a couple guys. We lose Hoff. Now we're like, okay, now what do we do? So it's different every day. You think and try to prepare as best you can, but unfortunately it changes so often, and our locker room is such a revolving door that it's just trying to stress to the core group of guys that we hope are going to be there for the series that, like, hey, this is really, really important. And like you said, it could be a pretty telling mini playoff series for us moving forward here.
I mean, when you talk about the chemistry and those changes, I mean, is that something you guys feel really intensely, like on a week-to-week basis, or like what is that feeling like? I mean, I know you talked about it's sad when people leave and stuff, but like, what does that do to the team, and kind of more into the strategy point of it, of going into figuring out what you have to do and how you have to change maybe the style of play depending on who you lose?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it has changed over the years for me. This year, it's obviously a little different because being the captain, having guys come down, it's can be exciting, right? You get somebody like Blake McLaughlin back, you get Danny Caddick back, you get the big man, you get to have Panny back, you get to have these guys come back, and it's like, wow, okay, where can we insert these guys that can really be really beneficial for our lineup? How can we adapt? And now our power play is all of a sudden is on paper is so skilled, and but when you start thinking about it from when I look back when I was maybe a call up from the SP or my first year in Tulsa, you start seeing these guys come down and you're like, oh my God, there's like 3 guys that just came down. Like, I might get cut. Like, I might not play. I might get scratched. Like, so when you look at the different perspective, it's definitely changed over the years. I can still remember I was a call up from Pensacola in Maine, and Maine was double affiliated with unofficially with Laval, and they were officially affiliated with Hartford. And so we would just have guys up and down, and I remember I was there, and I was so excited to be a call up and be in the coast finally, and they sent 3 guys down, and I was like, text my agent immediately, she's my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, but text her, I'm like, I might get cut, like I'm gonna get sent down. Like, this is it. Practice, I'm not even on a line anymore. Like, I'm just an extra guy on like the 5th line that's not going to play. So it's a very different perspective. Depending on who you ask and where you're at. But
absolutely, a little bit of an easier one. Out of the places you visited 4 games, whether it be in the SPHL, ECHL, wherever you've gone, where was your favorite place that you visited on like a road trip?
That actually might be a tougher question.
that might be one of the tougher ones.
Yeah, no, on a road trip, I would have to say probably Savannah. Savannah was a really awesome spot for us to visit. Just beautiful city. A lot to do, and I mean, it was 80 degrees and sunny when we were there, so you can't really complain about that.
Just the change difference from the cold to the heat was like, all right, never mind, this is the best one.
Yeah. But as far as living, Pensacola was the coolest spot for me to live in. I mean, we legitimately lived on the beach. Like, you open your back door and it's sand. Like, it was amazing. I mean, it was the SPHL, but like, legitimately, we lived in like $500,000 beach condos, and we just, I mean, if we didn't have ice that day or that week, like, we'd just have a team beach workout, and instead of going to the rink, like, after every day, you're either golfing or you're getting a lawn chair and you're sitting and watching the waves crash over the sand.
Oh, that's sick.
I don't know about you, Dylan, but if you're looking for something to do and you don't have a job, sounds like you should try to
hockey,
try playing semi-professional hockey, because it sounds pretty nice.
I actually have vacationed at Orange Beach, Alabama. That's like right next to Pensacola, and oh man, no, you're right. That beach area is just beautiful. Oh my gosh, so that definitely makes sense.
Kind of going back to the whole thing about the road trips, I went to the coaches show maybe a week or two ago, and Coach Barsky was talking about the road trip and everything. Just, do you guys get to, depending on your game schedule, of course, what is that kind of like in your downtime, I guess? Like, do you guys get to go and visit places or kind of explore where you're playing, or is it, business as usual?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question for sure. Depends on our schedule. I mean, like we had a little bit of time, couple off days here and there for when we were in Savannah. One full complete off day. A couple guys went golfing. It gets a little tricky because you gotta rent clubs and get a tee time, Uber, all this stuff. Kind of gets a little pricey, but sometimes can be worth it. Personally, it's I'm not as exciting as most guys. I kind of take care of my body and use the time to rest. And my off day in Savannah, my roommate and I, we kind of just got some good food and hung out by the pool and caught some sun for most of the day. But yeah, usually, I mean, there'll be an off day or something if you have a long enough trip to be able to explore where we're at. I mean, when we're talking about teams we play in our division, like most of our trips are day trips or just a quick overnight. So I can tell you firsthand, I've never explored Kalamazoo. I've never explored Coralville, Iowa. I've never explored Toledo. We've never explored any of those cities, right? Because we're kind of just so up and back. And to be honest, I don't think I would really want to explore any of those places.
Yeah, like Kalamazoo.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'd like to explore those compared to Savannah or some of the other places we've been.
Absolutely. I myself just got out of the Illinois State roller hockey team. When I was still in school, I played for that team. And with any club, with anyone we saw, it was always the same. They'd always get up to a bunch of mischief in the hotel room. So I got to ask, when it goes to the pros, does that go away, or are there still some guys creating mischief in the hotel rooms?
No, that kind of loses it when you turn pro.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
no, that makes sense. Makes sense.
No more leaners, no more getting guys doing stuff to their room, tearing it apart. No, that stays in junior.
Dad of the team, right? You gotta make sure all you guys are.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do now, but yeah.
That was kind of what I was doing my last year too. So I get that a little bit, having to be like, all right, come on, I don't want hotel staff getting on.
Oh yeah, we can't be getting kicked out.
Exactly, it's a little more important in the pros, I would think.
What is, just from a fan perspective, I mean, he seemed really nice, but like, what is Coach Barsky like for fans that may not know, and what is the dynamic between you and him specifically? With obviously he's the head coach, so he's the big boss, so to speak, but you control the locker room as the captain, and kind of what is that dynamic of, like, I don't want to say power struggle, but like, what does he let you do versus what does he kind of step into?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Bars will tell you firsthand he's a nerd. It's like the best, nicest way you can put it. He's the most analytical guy I've ever met in my life, in the best way possible. But yeah, he's kind of a nerd, and it's interesting if you ever get to chat with him long enough. He's very, very analytical about everything. There's a lot of statistics behind everything we do, a lot of data backed decisions, and he and I have a unbelievable relationship. When he called me in the summer, he was like, Eddie, I'm you, just as a coach. And I was kind of confused at first as to what he meant by that, but I kind of understand, having spent so much time with him now, just the mentality of just our want and drive to be the best that we can be. And we both want what's best for this team, and thus far, pretty much we have been on the same page about everything, and no power struggle, because I completely understand, like, if he has something, there are a lot of things I don't question, right? Whether I agree or not, there are a lot of things that it's, he, like you said, he's the big boss, so whether or not I agree, it's that's what it is, and I fully support him, in front of the team and everything. But there are some things that he wants to do that I'll step in and tell him that I don't agree, or say, hey, I think we should switch this, and he's all ears to everything, listens to everything. If I don't agree with something, completely lets me explain why, and then takes the information, and after that makes the decision whether to change it or not. But always lets me at least have my 2 cents as to why we should or shouldn't do something.
Makes sense. Having a more analytical coach then because obviously I don't need to repeat the famous line everybody knows, the one on the front's a lot more important than the name on the back. But do you guys ever, since you have such a more like statistical coach, do you sometimes look more into the stats? Like, I know most players don't really look at their own stats, but like, does it matter a little bit more if you have a more analytical coach?
Actually, no. So it's not those
Like-
kind of stats that he's
Like more
looking
advanced
at.
stats?
Yeah, it's like stats I've never even thought of. Like one of the things that he talks to me about all the time is called a BDS score. Now, don't ask me what it stands for because I always forget. But it's essentially me in the D zone. I have to stay between my guy and the net, right? And there's a score. If he gets to the net or behind me, my score goes down. If I stay in front of him, my score goes up. And that's like a very advanced. Doesn't sound advanced when I'm explaining it. I'm saying it out loud,
No,
but
that
it's
makes
a very
sense.
advanced like analytical statistic for our defensive zone coverage. And when Bars told me about it, I was kind of like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I have no idea what this is. Like, I've never even heard of this." And he's explaining this to me, and we watch video, and he tells me like. And so those are the kind of statistics
Gotcha.
that he's really into, and he's kind of like a mixture of like Moneyball and like, Miracle. Like, this is a combination of different coaches, like the way that he's able to put things together.
So he uses more like, has he used like Corsi 4? Like, do you know
Yes.
anything like that?
So he doesn't use Corsi. I know that for a fact.
He uses
He's
Fenwick?
not a huge fan of Corsi. He actually has like separate analytics that he uses to like one, evaluate players, but then two, also like use that for our team as well.
Like in team structures.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Like things I've never like I've played this game for 21 years. Things I've never even thought of. He's got some of these like statistics for everything.
Gotcha. I just say that because I'm more of an advanced stats nerd as well. I do like goals saved above expected more when it's like goalies, and then when it's players more of like Fenwick or Corsi percentages comparatively to just basic stats. But yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense using that in that statistical profile and less of just base stats.
I don't have very much to say about statistics. This is why I was a comm major, everybody. But I guess just as a whole, like looking back, I mean, obviously the season's not over. Huge, series of games coming up. But as a whole, what do you feel as the captain has been the strengths of your team this year versus the weaknesses, and where do you see this team going for the rest of the season, but also in the future?
Yeah. I think we'll start with the weaknesses. I think, one of the weaknesses of our team this year is that we're so young. I think it was difficult for the longest time that I was the oldest player on the team. Not to say that I'm young, but, for me to be the oldest player is different. And to have the injuries that we've had this year is another major weakness of our team. It's been really unfortunate to have, guys like Johnny Evans, who's an incredible player in this league, and he's barely played this year due to injury, and he's a strong voice in our locker room, and unfortunately, my voice eventually gets stale when there's not a ton of veteran presence, and that's been an unfortunate. Uncontrollable weakness for our team, but a major strength I think for this season has been kind of our perseverance through the inaugural year, right? Like just little things that we have to deal with, just like basic things like trying to find relationships with different physical therapists in the area, finding relationships with chiropractors, and just our perseverance to get through just all of those different kinds of things. And I think the future of this year is kind of, we're coming down to some really important games like we've talked about. That's probably going to determine the future of this year. But I think the future of this organization is something really special. I mean, just what we've done in this first year. I mean, it's only gonna grow. And so I think that the sky's the limit for the organization in the future.
I was gonna say, I know you guys, it's business as usual. You're hockey players, that's what you do. But do you guys pay attention to any of the how big the crowds are? Any of the do you guys pay attention to that, or especially considering it's an inaugural season, or do you guys just kind of put your head down and be, we'll go play if there's one person there, or we'll play with if there's 10,000?
We definitely pay attention. I mean, it's way more fun to play in front of a huge crowd than it is to play in front of one person, for sure. And that's something we've noticed for sure. I mean, the community in Bloomington's been amazing. I mean, we can't even believe like the fan support we have in this inaugural year. Like I know that the Bloomington's had a huge struggle with hockey and support from the fans and community in the past, and I was honestly a little bit concerned about that because I know that the relationships with the teams and the community haven't been the greatest, and I know that they're junior players, so it's a little different. But I didn't know how hockey was going to be welcomed into this community, and it's been absolutely amazing. Like it just, our fans were huge turnout for our first exhibition game, and then it's just only grown from there. I mean, even with our kind of rocky up and down season, wins and losses, like we still have a really solid fan base for an inaugural year. And honestly, the crowd is so loud, it's actually unbelievable. I mean, very very surprising for us when we're out there, and they're interacting with our MC, and they're interacting with the fans, and like on the ice for us, that's so amazing. I mean, hearing the Chongmin Lee chant, that's like the coolest thing ever, right? Man. I've heard a couple Eddie chants, like those things for us are awesome. Maybe not so much in the moment because we're pretty focused, but like understanding that we have a community that is gonna chant Chongmin Lee is like that's unbelievable, So no, we definitely pay attention to that stuff, and even getting to interact with the community, and we've had a couple fans come in the locker room. We've just the skate with the Bisons have been awesome. The first one was a little rocky. Again, things that we're working through, right? Just learning process, but now they kind of streamline that process a bit, and it's been amazing.
Exactly. It's not just the first year for the players and everyone. It's the first year for the game ops staff and the arena staff and everybody. So, some kinks to work through, but it happens. What are you gonna do? It's an inaugural year. Exactly. And this isn't just because of the inaugural year, just in any year when you have all these, because we've had a lot of different variety days already, and we're like 2/3 through the season at this point. We've had a ton of different ones. What has been your favorite out of the different event days? I mean, I don't know how paid attention to it you are, but they get different jerseys and stuff like that. Like which ones have been your favorites?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really like the Batman jerseys. I thought they looked really sweet because we also had the pant covers with them. Those were really awesome. And the elf jerseys were pretty cool too. Yeah, it's tough because sometimes when we get different jerseys, it's way more fun. But some of them, we don't even know that they're happening. Like it's kind of crazy.
It's just on the day.
Yeah, like what was it, the Wizards Night or something?
Yeah.
We didn't even know that was happening. We're like, what is this? We don't even know what's going on. Like people dressed up in capes and wands, and we're just wearing our regular home jerseys. We're like, oh, is it Wizards Night? So sometimes we don't even know that it's happening. Like, what was it on the last game, or I don't even know which game is supposed to be a Valentine's Day one? We had no idea about that either. So unless we get a different jersey, or they do something that different, we have no idea.
Do you even know it was Abe's birthday yesterday?
I knew in the middle of the game, but
not much pregame.
We didn't know pregame. They don't really fill us in and tell us oh yeah, it's this night or that night or whatever. So yeah, those are the things we kind of have no idea about.
Yeah. Well, that makes more sense.
That's interesting. I mean, it kind of makes sense that like I said, your job is to play hockey. So
yeah.
You guys probably don't care as much about that stuff because you're not a fan. You're playing hockey, but that is interesting. Would you expect that, Dylan?
Honestly, I would feel like the game ops people would at least let you know somewhat before, but I guess it makes sense. Yeah. So like getting into the game, that's more on, again, game ops crew learning, possibly give you just a heads up, hey, this is what the day is.
Yeah, it's kind of, for us, I guess it's whether it's Abe's birthday or not, for us that doesn't
it's not going to change the on-ice
anything
performance
unless we're
that much.
Yeah, unless we're doing a jersey auction at the end or that kind of stuff. Usually that's more for the fans, right? So
exactly. Out of those how many events have you done like in the community so far? Because I've seen like a couple posts about it, but like in general, I know it's only a few guys that get called out at once to do one of those community events. But how many have you been a part of or like seen?
Yeah, I actually have done just a couple practices with some of the youth teams, and it was awesome. Like getting to go out and just, I'm in my locker room, and we were actually on our sheet for the couple practices, and just seeing the kids' faces when I walked out of our locker room. And I just remember one kid, he just kind of stopped and looked at me with this blank stare on his face, and I was like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" And he was just like, looked at his mom and then looked back at me and was like, she's like, "Well, you can say hi." I'm like, "Buddy, what's your name?" And he just like was just like frozen, and I was like, "All right, buddy, well, we're gonna go skate. Like, come on, like, let's go." It was like the 10U or whatever, and he just for like 3 minutes just completely frozen. And it's fun though to interact with the younger players like that, because those are the players that that age, they just have no filter, right? So they want to ask all the questions. They really don't care about like deep into the hockey. They care more about like, oh, how do I pick that puck up with a stick? How do I Zorro the puck? Like, how do I do this? And they're like, oh, I play with you on NHL. You know what I mean? Just like little things like that, where it's just like they're kids, so they don't really care about like the bigger picture. They don't care like, oh, you've played a couple games in the American League. You're this, you're that. Like, they just see us as like professional hockey players. So they just it's cool. It's really awesome to be able to get out and see kids and interact with them like that.
Absolutely.
What is it like for you? I personally, I'm a really social guy, and like I don't mind having the spotlight put on me, but like, what are you like in terms of like, is that weird for you to get like recognized out in public, or are you pretty much used to it at this point?
I don't know if you ever get used to it, but it doesn't. I wouldn't say it bothers me. I'm a pretty social person as well, so if I'll always take some time and talk with people if they're there, they recognize me, or with the kids. I think I work with kids in the summer, so that's I do a lot of skills coaching in the summer, and if somebody's going to take the time to actually recognize me and have the courage to say something, I'm not just going to blow them off. I'm going to take some time and chat with them for a bit. So no, yeah, for me it's cool. Like I said, I don't think you ever get used to it, but I'll definitely take the time to chat with people.
Absolutely. There was a questionnaire posed by the social people a few weeks ago that was like, what was your favorite part about Bloomington? And we actually talked about it on the pod a little bit, that Chongmin Lee's answer was Fat Jack's, which is hilarious. Do you also have a favorite bar in Bloomington?
Honestly, I'm not a huge drinker. I don't really drink during the season. And I couldn't even tell you 3 bars in Bloomington.
Oh, Eddie.
I know.
Brutal.
I know. I'm getting older, and I've been out a couple times with the guys, but honestly, we don't really get that many Saturdays to go out. Like, we've had, I think, 3 Saturdays to go out. One of them was my dad's birthday, so I was like, well, I can't. He's gonna hang out. Like, I can't drag him out with the boys. He might love it for like an hour, but I can't drag him out.
Probably get annoyed of it after a little bit.
One of the Saturdays we did go out, and then the last one I didn't. So honestly, other than Fat Jack's, I think I know there's like a country bar, and then I couldn't even name 3.
Oof. I guess, Dylan, the good thing is, Bison fans, your captain takes care of himself.
Exactly.
I guess. So
exactly.
If we're gonna take anything out of that, it's good. That's good.
Is that our captain is being smart, not drinking during the season, keeping the head space there.
Yeah, I'm just no fun. That's all the listeners. I'm zero fun. So everybody else is way more fun than me. I am like not your typical hockey player professionally. So everybody else is way more fun than me, and I just have no fun.
I would give you more smack for that, but literally last year, in my senior year, I was that lame guy on the team, because I was the head coach last year, so I was the one telling everyone, all right, back in your rooms, like, we gotta get there for the game in the morning and everything. So I was always the lame one. So I feel you there. I understand the bars. I honestly haven't been to that many bars in Bloomington. I've been to a lot of the ones in Normal, like Pub and Brewhouse, but I haven't been to a ton in Bloomington actually.
That's 'cause
So
we got Bison games to go to now.
exactly.
Who cares about the bars?
Apparently the college kids. We need to get more college kids out to the game. We've been trying to advertise to the college kids because they I know they'd love it. They'd love to get hammered at. I mean,
Oh yeah.
as someone who has done that plenty of times, get hammered at a hockey game
Yes.
and get into it. Come on, college kids. It's so fun. How are you not doing this?
Yeah, and most of the kids, I mean, most of us are, other than me, but most of the guys are like college age too. So like it's like the similar age, you know. It's not like we're like old, or I mean, other than me and maybe Coates. I think me and Coates are pretty old, but everybody else is right around the same age. Some guys are actually younger than them, probably. We have a couple. Well, I guess 20, right? We have a couple. We have a bunch of 20-year-olds. A few guys maybe a couple years older, but
No, I feel old. I'm 22. I'm
22.
getting old.
Speaking of age difference, like, is there anything that you notice with, playing with a bunch of the younger guys? What is that like, whether it's you're out on the road, like how they act off the ice and on the ice? Like, what is that like? And maybe who are are there any jokesters on the team?
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the age difference is just this year especially was the worst. I think last year it started. Last year was the first year I started to notice that like I was like getting older, and I sat between two guys in Tulsa that were rookies, and so I was 29 turning 30 last year, and I sat between a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old, and at first they're a little bit intimidated because it's like it's like a decade between us. Like it's like, geez. I'm like, man, I don't, if these guys want to talk to me, I have no issue. I'm never like, I'm not a dick. I don't, tell anybody off. And if guys have questions, I'm always talk. But I started noticing that I was really getting old when one of the guys asked me how to turn the washing machine on. And I was like, in my head, I was like, what? There were so many things going through my head. Like, okay, I'm going to chirp this guy so bad. And then I started thinking, I let the look on his face of pure innocence of like, how do you turn, like, was like legitimately like confiding in me to just be like, hey, how do I turn this on? Because like you think about it, you're 20, you go to junior, like you billet family's doing your laundry for you. You grew up, most hockey players' parents are doing everything for them. Like never had to like start a washing
Never had to
machine.
start a washing machine?
That's insane.
That's
So you tell it. So then all of a sudden I'm like, oh god, okay. I'm not gonna chirp this guy. I'm like, great. Now I gotta like explain how to do this, and then got the similar question of like, hey man, like, can you put dishwashing liquid in the dishwasher? And I'm like, guys, what are we talking about here? Like, what are we doing? Like, but again, I'm like, no, like you can't. It will fill your. I'm like, you will. Well, no. They wanted to put like the dish soap in the dishwasher, and I'm like, you guys will fill your entire kitchen with bubbles if you do this. I'm like, no. I'm like, there's dishwashing detergent and there's dish soap. They're two separate things, and you cannot use them in the same way. Right? So it's like trying to figure out these differences. Some of these guys never lived alone before, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh, guys asking like how to cook. Which, okay, I kind of get that, right? Like you've never done it before, but like get these phone calls or FaceTimes like, hey, how do you cook your chicken?
what?
Like either on the stove or in the oven. I'm like, okay, well, how do you do it? Like, what are we talking about here? So step by step of like how to, it says like teaching guys how to boil noodles, right? Like it's just like crazy things.
Don't have YouTube, can't just like look up.
No, they just pure panic. I mean, think about it, like you just, I don't know. If you've never done it before, I suppose you're living by yourself. You got a grocery shop, some of these poor guys just think about like them, and you got to tell these guys before we go on a road trip, like, hey, you should probably start your dishwasher. You should probably take your trash out. Like, otherwise you're going to come back, everything will be mold. Like, you know what I mean? Make sure you don't have like food in there that's perishable in your, probably have to explain what perishable means, but make sure they don't have all these things in there at their apartment, because they're the only ones that are there. They're taking care of it. So there's, yeah, I mean, it's, I've started to feel really old in the past couple of years. I remember last year we had one guy that oh gosh, I don't even know if I should tell this story. This is so bad.
Peer pressure.
We're we won't name names, but anybody that has played with me will know who this is. But my wife and I, per the CBA, we get our own place. That's just when you're married, you get your own place. And we had a lot of injuries in Tulsa last year, and we kind of, we had guys coming in and they didn't have places to stay, and so this one guy was like, I kind of knew him a little bit from San Diego's camp, and he was like, hey man, like, you think I can live with you? And I was like, well, I was like, I mean, I have my 2 dogs and my wife. And he's like, oh yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, all right. So I kind of just let it go. Like, I wasn't gonna say no, but I kind of was just gonna let it go and see if somebody else got moved or whatever, and then they could have his own spot. And he ended up, again, coach was like, hey, we're gonna move you into to this spot or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm gonna live with Matt's. And I was like, and the coach was like, is that, are you sure? And he's like, well, yeah. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, is that okay? And I was like, he's like, dude, you're just like so dialed and with everything, like nutrition and like taking care of yourself. Like, I just feel like I need that in my life. And I'm like, like, how do I say no to that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you say no? Like, this 21-year-old's like, how do I, like, he wants to come live with me and learn. And I'm like, all right, like, how do we say no? So we're like, okay. So we let him come live with us. And I should have known that something was wrong the first day.
Oh boy.
First day. Took him to Target because you got to get, like, pillows and bed sheets and just, basic things. Yeah. And so we're doing that, and I'm helping him move his stuff in his room. And his door was shut, but I had a handful of his stuff, so I just opened the door and kind of put his stuff on his bed. And I noticed like a tray of like muffins, like you get like 4 in the plastic container, and one of the muffins was eaten and the wrapper was face down on the carpet.
Ouch.
And I was kind of like, I didn't really think anything of it, but I was kind of like, whatever, like, not a big deal. And days go on, and we have to go on a road trip. And I should back up. 2 days before we go on this road trip, we see a mouse in our place. Oh boy. Which in Tulsa, I'm not gonna lie to you, that's kind of like on par. Like, we probably like find a rat or two, but we've never had that issue in 3 years, so we're kind of confused. And my wife is like, she's upset because our dogs are going crazy, right? So we're like trying to figure out how to get rid of these rats, and so we finally get rid of the one because we think it's just one. So we're like, okay, we got rid of it. We got a trap. We got it.
It's never one. It's never one.
It's never one. And so we go on this road trip, and again, we're like, we got traps set out everywhere, and like,
the rat's gone. We're gonna be fine.
Yep, exactly. Now my wife texts me. She's like, there's 3 rats. I'm like, what? Then she kills them. Now it's 4 rats, and I'm like, yo, what is happening? Now it's 5 rats, and these are rats she's like taking care of because she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, go grab my hockey stick in the room. I'm like, literally, when you see one, just slap shot it, like, just like, I don't know what else. Things like sprinting across our kitchen. I'm like, just smack it.
You can
like,
have little red splatters on the wall.
That is the most hockey player thing I think I've ever heard.
Not even whack it with the stick. Just take an absolute clapper at the wall.
Just like smack the rat, like, whatever. So now we've gotten up to 7 rats, and my wife is like, okay, something's wrong, right? Like, there's something wrong here.
Rats.
Like, we haven't had any rats in 3 years, and now we've got 7 in a weekend. So she's like, I gotta go in his room. I'm like, you can't go in his room. She's like, I don't care. I have to go in. She opens the door, and she sent me a video of like trash, garbage, food, just like all over the room. Oh. Like open containers of like corn nuts and chips and like used chew all over the floor. Like, there was in his protein, there was like rat shit in. I don't know if I can swear on this, but there's rat poop
you can go for it, dude.
in the protein. Like, and I was like, oh my God.
In the protein is.
So now we know where all these rats are coming from, and I'm like,
get some extra protein.
Yeah. But I was like, oh my God, like, I'm like, now we're like bussing back to our to home, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, I can't let this guy like roll in at 2:30 and deal with this mess. And I'm like, oh man. So I just went up to him on the bus. I'm like, hey dude, like, can we chat really quick? And he's like, yeah, man, what's up? And I'm like, there's in front of a bunch of guys, and I'm like, nah, dude, can you just come to the back of the bus? He's like, no, what's up? I'm like, well, Andrew had to go in your room, and and there was ants.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere.
Oh, my.
Crawling on his bed, like crawling on the floor, like windowsill. I'm like, oh my God. So I was like, dude, hey man, like Andrew had to go in your room, like, dude, ants are everywhere, like, and he's like, what, how? Like, why? I'm like, brother, like, there's stuff everywhere.
There's
man.
food everywhere.
He's like, well, I didn't leave anything out. Just maybe corn nuts. Yeah. I think just like corn nuts. Like there's one bag of corn nuts. And I'm like, hey, listen, man, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like when you get home, like you gotta take care of it. And he's like, what? We get home and he's like, what do I do? And I'm like, all right, dude. I'm like, help him out. I'm like, get the trash bag. I'm like, here, step one, all the trash, everything on the floor in this bag, it's gotta go. I'm like, including the protein, including everything that's been open. I'm like, gotta go. He's like, how do I get rid of these ants? I'm like,
not in one day.
I'm like, dude, vacuum. I'm like, you vacuum all of them up. And then I'm like, take this bleach spray. I'm like, every little corner where they could come in, I'm like, spray this, wipe it down. And I'm like, when you're done, please put this vacuum like outside. Because at first he came home and he's like, wow, he's like, I can't stay here tonight. And I'm like, yeah, well, you gotta clean it first. Dude.
Yeah.
You gotta clean this thing first. So I'm trying to teach him how to clean. It was a shit show to say the least. It got so bad that I had to show the video to our assistant coach, and unfortunately, he had to get moved out of our place. So my wife's a little scarred from having young guys live with us. But yeah, hopefully that was kind of a fluke incident last year. But yeah, it was pretty tough.
Oh, that's brutal. I've lived with my hockey teammates in the past, and it wasn't that bad, but one of them was like near that level. You know who you are. You know who you are. I won't name you either, but I get it, where you have a roommate who is just like, man, stuff is just everywhere. Like, well, how do you like walk?
His stuff, it was pretty good. Like his stuff wasn't anywhere out in the shared space. It was only in his room. It was only in his room. It was just a disaster.
Just a disaster in the room. Yeah. It was the same way. He didn't like throw his stuff on the couch or anything. Kept it to himself. It's just the second you open the room, it's like, did a bomb go off in here? Yeah. Like, what happened?
Yeah, it was tough. Really tough. Really tough. Oh, I didn't even answer your question. Jokesters on our team. Yeah, we don't have a ton of like pranksters. I'd say Lockhart's a pretty Lockhart can give some pretty good pranks. He messes with some of the guys his age a bit too, and then Max Neal, he's got some pretty good pranks, and but yeah, we don't have a ton of guys that do a lot. I do like little subtle things, like just to get guys to think a little bit. Like you just switch some stuff around and in their stall and move it different spot, make them think like, did I put that there? Like,
watch the reaction.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Do they ever try and mess with you, or do they think you're the wise men in the group and we'll figure it out?
Off limits?
Yeah, no. I think the only guy that, because I've never played with a lot of these guys before, so they don't really know my personality away from the rink, because at the rink it's much different than it is away from it. And, I think when I first got here and was named captain, there was just a lot of being like really careful, tiptoeing around what they say around me, what they say to me, what they say about me. And then when Blake McLaughlin got sent down for the first time, I've played with him for the last 2 years, so he came in and just, all these guys are like really professional with me, and he's just like, hey Ed, what's going on, blah blah blah. just can't come in, and everybody was kind of like, everybody froze, like I was gonna just like have this awful reaction and just like scream at him, but me and Glocks are boys, so I was like, so then I think after that things kind of settled down a bit. But as far as pranks goes, guys kind of stay away from the pranks on me. But yeah. Oh,
his nickname is Glocks.
Yeah, because McLaughlin. It's because like McCarty is Carts or Mac, but then we'd have Mac for Blake as well. So then it kind of was like, okay, we got to have Carts and then Glocks. So it's just like a crazy in between of trying to figure out how to make sure we're not calling guys the same name.
Exactly. No, we sometimes like just didn't even realize how little the degree of separation sometimes is with just this different level of players. Because we were talking about Case McCarthy on the pod recently, because we talk a lot about like Blackhawks stuff and different NHL ones on the pod as well.
Yeah.
And Blackhawks prospect Ryan Green is playing for Boston U right now, and
Yeah.
Case had played for Boston for like the past 5 years. And we're like, we had no idea that like these two entirely separate things that we were talking about have played together. We thought that was... It's a small world. That's what we've learned.
Yeah, hockey is a small world in itself, and I'm sure, as you know, roller hockey is even smaller,
tiny.
But like, yeah, it's crazy just to, you know, like when you turn professional, like it's hard to like play a team now and not know somebody on the other team or know of somebody based on somebody else that I know. And so it's just crazy seeing, you know, the longer I play, even though I'm, you know, 31 now, and guys that I grew up with probably aren't playing, but just having these connections in pro, it's crazy.
Absolutely. So there's been some big crowd reactions at some of the games. So like I'm specifically remembering as you were talking about that Shongmin Lee chant. I remember that was at the Kalamazoo game. I think that we won 4-0. What are just some moments, like it could not even be a crowd reaction, just some moments you remember from the season, like some of the biggest things that you've taken away so far?
Yeah, I think you know, personally there was one game, God, I don't remember who we were playing, maybe Cincy at home, and my grandpa has never seen me play professionally, and because we're so close, he was able to drive down with my mom and see the game, and I just so happened to score, assist from the big man. I remember it so clear as day. You know, being able to score and have my grandpa be there, and then talk to him after the game, and just like how excited he was, and just to, you know, didn't like understand the magnitude of like what I'm doing and where I'm at, and you know, because I tell him all about it, he hears about it, and he's not like watching it on Flow Sports or anything, but like just like being able to have him be there in person was something like really, really special that I'll never forget.
That's awesome. My last specific question about the Bison here. Out of the teams you faced so far this year, in division, I'll say, or I guess out of division would work. I'm just assuming it's probably going to be in division. What was the least favorite team you've played? I think I know the answer.
Iowa.
Yep. I could have guessed it was Iowa, but just wanted to make sure. Yep. We talked about it on the pod a little bit in one of the earlier episodes, but it was crazy just how quickly that rivalry started. It was like instant. Like
yeah, you know, that, I mean, that obviously started from one guy, and the fact that I'm even gonna say his name just brings credit to exactly what you know, what he wants and what he's doing on the ice. I mean Blotchman, I got to give him credit. I mean, I tip my cap to him. Like, he does his job. You know, I mean, having a guy like that on the ice, I mean, that's a little bit old school, you know, a little bit older school of hockey. And again, a weakness of our team is that we're so young. And you know, I've had guys chirp me my whole career, and you know, I was just fortunate in Tulsa that I had been there for 3 years. So most of the guys in the division we just had like a mutual respect. Like, guys know I'm gonna go 100% as hard as possible until the whistle blows. The minute it's done, I'm done. Right? Like, I'll tackle the goalie until the whistle blows, and I'm like, hey, my bad, I'm off. Like, you know, whatever. But you know, having Blotchman stand at the red line just screaming my name for, I don't even know how long. Just some of the chirps I cannot repeat ever. Just, I mean, you know, I could just see the look. I'm laughing as this is happening, right? Because I'm like, this guy can't skate. He's never going to be on the ice with me. And if he is, I love that, because he's not going to catch me. Like, I want to play against that kind of player.
I can wheel around him.
Exactly. But I got in the locker room, and again, this was so early in the year that I didn't even think about it. But I looked at the look on our guys' faces, and they were just like lost. They were like, oh my God, like, what is happening? This guy's gonna like kill us. He's gonna like, yeah. There's like just the intimidation that he brought from just standing at the red line, and you know, like, we did not have Jackson Stewart in the lineup that night, and so it was like we didn't have anybody that was gonna fight him, and Blotchman knew it. I mean, he told our whole bench, like, he's chirping our whole bench. He's like, not a single one of you is going to do a thing. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, buddy, come on, man. Like, God. And our whole team was just like so intimidated. And that first I mean, we got beat that first game because of that. So it's, and then just that, having him be out there and just chirping like that, it just, yeah. I mean, and they're a hard-hitting team. I mean, I got to give credit to their other players too. I mean, Yuki Mira, their captain, he's an awesome guy. I've kind of connected with him a bit over the past few years because we played Iowa, and Cavallari's a really gritty, solid player, and they have some good players on that team that they hit hard, and it's a battle. We know it's going to be a battle, and Blotchman may have started it, but those other guys have continued it in a more respectful way.
Maybe.
But, yeah, no, Iowa's definitely the team for sure.
Oh no, absolutely. I just remember being like, it was in that, I think, like second month, like November or late October or something. I just remember seeing a sign, our fan with a sign, Nico sucks, and I'm like, it is like the third game we've played. That is crazy how fast that whole rivalry just started, and it's been so fun to watch because the games you win then, man,
it's that much better.
Oh, it's that much better. I've been there for the specifically that last like home win against the Heartlanders. Oh, that was so good. That was probably one of my favorite games that I've seen. Other than that, I got just one more question for you, Eddie. So we also, as we mentioned earlier, talk about the NHL a little bit on this podcast, Blackhawks, stuff like that. With that being said, I have to ask, how much attention have you been paying to the Four Nations face-off so far this year?
Yeah, Four Nations. I wasn't able to watch the first game with Canada, but I did watch the U.S. The first U.S. game, and we had a game the next day, so I was laying in bed, and once it turned 4-1, it was I turned it off. But yeah, I've been keeping track of it a bit.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't stop watching it as many ones that I could. I couldn't catch the recent Canada USA one because I was there at the Bison game, but and obviously you couldn't either because you were also at the Bison game. I wonder why. But no, it's been fantastic. The upcoming game is going to be just here in a little bit, and we'll have to tune in. But that's about it. Mike, you have any extra questions?
No, I mean, we really appreciate you coming on to our podcast. We know you're a busy guy, so we appreciate your time, and hopefully you guys will make a strong playoff push as we're all hoping, and I'm looking forward to coming to more games and seeing you win.
I'll definitely be there for that 4-game series, the ones that are at home for Indy. So we got to do good here. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. That has been the 4th episode of the Sin Bin Podcast here with Eddie Matsushima. Thank you for watching, and that's it today.